sure to me.
Yes, he did.
Donnybrook is made possible by the members of the 9 Network.
Well, they didn't cancel us yet. Thanks so much for joining us for this edition of Donnybrook, especially you viewers who are now in assisted living or nursing homes. Thank you so much for inviting us into your living rooms. We're honored about that. And we want to say, let's stay connected. We're thinking about you. You are in our thoughts at this time. I know your contact with the outside world is a little diminished. That's why it's so important for us and to us that you are still choosing the 9 Network. Hey, let's meet Wendy Weiss. She kicks off our panel tonight. She, of course, is the news director for the Big 550 KTRS. We also have Mr. Bill McClellan from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, along with Ray Hartman from the Riverfront Times and the Ray Hartman Show on the Big 550 KTRS. We've got Alvin Reed from 590 AM, 97.1 FM, the Dave Glover Show, plus the St. Louis American, STLmag.com. Well, Alvin, I think our viewers know that the big topic tonight is coronavirus. The whole nation, the whole world is a pandemic, the likes of which we have not seen. And here in St. Louis, a lot of discussion is centered around this father and daughter from Ladue who attended the Villa Duchesne father-daughter dance, even though a sister of the daughter tested positive for coronavirus. She actually got the test on, I believe, Friday, and it was announced on Saturday during the dance that she was positive. That's when they had the big press conference, St. Louis County and the governor announcing that. Some people are saying it was the county's fault for not being specific, that they should stay home. Others cannot believe that they decided not to self-quarantine. How'd you come down in this one?
Well, you know, we all have families here, okay? And I've got one, and, I went to some father-daughter dances with my daughters. And I also went to a trivia event at MICDS on Saturday night. And there is a, you know, because of the, interaction between MICDS and boroughs and the connection that we've all learned about in the last week, there is a chance that someone, the younger daughter went to school on Thursday and Friday. I mean, there's a chance that there was someone there that was in contact with them that maybe came in contact with me. I'm not fearful, and I don't want, no one should be fearful. We just should be cautious and do the things we need to do. And that includes quarantining yourself if someone within your household, actually has contracted the virus. And I think this behooves the family to quarantine themselves. I also just, this is not St. Louis County's fault. I mean, they took the actions that they needed to, and I think to kind of subvert the question where they said, like, they did not tell her, they just don't leave the house or all that. Quite frankly, I don't know.
Well, their lawyer, Neil Bruntrager, says they were not specifically directed to self-quarantine.
And the key word there is lawyer, okay? If I was in that situation, I could explain myself, and lawyer comes down to find a nuance, find a way to get us out of this, and I'm just not buying it.
And I think the key word really was specifically told. You shouldn't have to be specifically told. I mean, it's kind of a common sense thing. If you have one of the kids who has just been in Italy and isn't feeling well and is in fact being tested, so that you're aware of the possibility here, it seems like even though you don't want to miss a father-daughter dance, you should say, until we hear that this daughter is clean and we haven't been exposed to it, we're not going to go to a dance and possibly expose other people.
When the daughter arrived for testing, she was met by medical personnel at Mercy in full protective regalia. Now, as a mother, that would tell me all I would need to know. People are different. People, we are not all, cut from the same bolt of cloth. We don't all process information the same way. I have erred on the side of caution since my kids were little, since our children were little, when it came to things like the intestinal flu, which they seem to be, any kind of intestinal flu bug seems to take off like a shot and is, you know, around the block in no time. So we would just self-quarantine in that way. So that part of it is very confusing. There is a whole lot of confusion.
I'm sorry.
No,
Wendy.
go ahead.
I was going to say the only defense that I could make for the father's judgment is if he's a person who doesn't read the newspaper, doesn't watch public TV news, and gets his news from Fox and Rush Limbaugh, and the people who were minimizing the whole thing and saying, you know, this is just a hoax, not the virus, but the way the media is treating it. If the father believed that, then I think that he'd think, you know, well, it's not a moral decision. I'm just not going to be taken in by the hoax.
I have a different point of view, which is probably not a safe one. First of all, I don't agree. I did talk to Neil Bruntraker, so there's that, and I don't think it's disqualifying that they have a lawyer or that they have a position on that. I don't disagree with the common sense analysis. In other words, I understand that, you know, the facts are in dispute, okay, and we don't really know what they are. According to them, and this is according to them, I'm not saying they're right or anything, but according to them, at the time they went to the daddy-daughter dance, they did not think that their daughter had the virus. Okay, that's their position. Now, you can disagree with it.
But Ray, she had been taken to the hospital so that she could be tested.
I said you could make the case that the common sense, but I think it's important to recognize that there's at least a point that he told me that the mother at the scene was told by the doctor, who actually, she asked, as any parent would, what do you think? And the doctor said she didn't, the sense was she didn't think she had it, but they weren't sure. And they got the positive results from the county while they were at the dance. Okay, that's their position.
That's right.
Now, again, I don't know, I will say this, everybody's so defensive for the county.
Even if that is their position, Ray.
Okay, fine. Okay.
I mean, that they didn't know for sure. The thing is, should they have gone out at all knowing it was a possibility?
And I'd say probably not.
Okay.
But on the other hand, it's not quite as cut and dried as people are making it, because they're making it sound like they knew it, they didn't care, they were willing to expose the community. And what seems to be glossed over is, and Neil Bruntraker told me that they have the cell phone records. The entire conversation they had on this subject with the county, in which the county allegedly, according to Sam Page, told them to self-quarantine, which I don't believe they did, and gave them instructions for care. He would have had to do all of that in 8 minutes.
Well, my understanding is, my understanding is just a factual thing here. The county health officials say they told the family specifically on Thursday to stay on their property.
And the county, and again, that's where there's a difference of opinion. My question is, and the family says otherwise. Here's my question. If you get a parking ticket, it's in writing. We're talking about a pandemic. We're talking about a health department thinking somebody might have the coronavirus, and there is not, let me finish, there's not one word in writing or electronic to document. That's insane. That is insane.
No, Ray, you should not. Raymond, you should not have to put something in writing when you say this is the coronavirus your daughter is being tested for. You shouldn't have to say in writing, don't do it.
Yes, you should.
Bill, listen, when you have oral surgery, when you have any kind of outpatient surgery, if I have an impacted tooth removed, I come home with 3 pages worth of instructions.
I don't.
I always have.
I don't get any. Just for the record, I've never gotten any written instructions from a dentist.
Wait a minute.
Or a physician.
You are reading what you got, because
a physician doesn't get you.
Wait a minute. If the doctor or the dentist came to your house and told you what you could and could not eat, If he didn't write it down, you would go to Steak and Shake that night?
That's not the
What
point.
sense does
Yes,
that
it is.
make?
It's a good point.
There are plenty of people, as I said, who process information differently, and I think that's one of the reasons why doctors are so very careful to put things in writing and to literally put them in your hand.
So
when
this
you
is,
leave
wait a minute, Ray, this all is Sam Page's fault. This all is the county's fault.
No, but what
you said Sam Page, so wait, let's go there.
I said Sam Page. Okay, you want me to be specific?
Yes.
Sam Page on McGraw-Millhaven's show went to great detail about how the county, and I didn't say it's Sam Page's fault. What I said is I didn't.
He's the county executive.
Okay, let me finish. He said.
Well, be quick, Ray.
Why don't we just move on? I mean, seriously.
No, I will say,
I'm
Sam
trying to
Page
answer
was
your
on my
question.
show too, and he said to me,
he said very clearly that they were told to quarantine and that they were given detailed instructions for care. And if they did that, they would have had to do it within an 8-minute phone call. And I don't believe him.
According to Sam Page,
and
he
Tim
told
Fitch
me
doesn't
that
believe
they were in contact with them twice a day for several days from the moment they were first contacted on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
And they have a completely different version of that. And the reason it needs to be in writing, besides the fact that it happens to be a pandemic.
I think that's silly.
It's a pandemic and it doesn't need to be in writing.
Well, let me give you an example.
Are you kidding?
Ken Warren, professor of political science at St. Louis University, has a wife who came back from China. She self-quarantined. And she got no information from the county. They got it from the CDC. And guess what? They followed the rules, and that's why Professor Warren was in the paper saying he couldn't understand in this day and age why anyone would not, when they suspect that they would have this problem, why they would be out and about.
Which lends to Ray's point about the need for written instructions.
Where is Professor Warren's instructions?
Ken didn't get written instructions.
I heard Sam Page say the honor system. This is not something you do on the honor system. This is the health crisis, and they have got to document it. And when Tim Fitch grilled, he grilled Spring Schmidt, the county top health official, and kept asking, "Did you use the Q word?" She wouldn't answer.
No, they said isolation.
She wouldn't answer.
You say there's a pandemic, the honor system isn't enough. The honor system should be enough. I mean, this should not be the sort of thing that, okay, I know that somebody in my family, we've all been exposed to it, but we're going to go to the dance because nobody said it. And
you know what, Bill? You know what, Bill?
It's common sense. It's what society is about.
We're just going to do it all verbally.
You know what, Bill? I think Keith Wildhaber probably said the same thing in his dealings with the county. That was just common sense that he would not be passed over for promotion that many times. I think that any time, and I'm not saying that these are nefarious evildoers. I'm saying that we are in some seriously uncharted territory here.
Well, that's true.
And that I could see where you would assume that people understand that when they're met by medical personnel.
Wendy, you opened the show by saying that the family was greeted by people in what, hazmat suits or something at Mercy Hospital.
Correct.
So what was uncertain about this?
That's my question.
No.
But it doesn't matter to me. The onus is on the health department. If you have to sit down, and I do believe that Sam Page, he kept saying, let's move forward, let's move forward. I think that they will never, if they did take that for granted, it will never be taken for granted again.
Well, that's for sure.
Honestly.
Ask the restaurants in this town, how many of them have have had a violation of the county health department codes, and all they've gotten is a phone call back.
I think you're lowering it up, Ray.
I hope I never get shot, but I will wait for somebody to tell me in writing to go to the hospital when I got a bullet in me.
I mean, there is a common sense element here.
Well, of course there is.
Wendy, let me ask you this.
If
At this point, if the family has been out and about at parties, at the coffee shop on Clayton Road in Ladue, if it's gone to this dance, and if the daughter's been to school, should they, for the sake of public health, be publicly identified?
Well, again, we are in a completely different, where I don't know what the answer is. I wish I know what the answer is. I know what their names are. I know what I know where they live. I know who their relatives are. And I think that most of the people, certainly not all of the people who were exposed, they know who they are as well. There are also HIPAA, I mean, there are all sorts of HIPAA questions that come into play here. That's what I mean. We are rewriting the rule book as, you know, the clock ticks. So,
Well, you know, it seems to me that, sadly enough, we're in an era of angry people, and you never know what the public will do, that, you know, I've come to the conclusion you shouldn't publicly identify them. Even though this is one of the worst kept secrets.
that's exactly right.
Yeah, one of the worst kept secrets around. Like when Eric Greitens had his affair with the hairdresser, you know, it took a while for people to know who she was, who KS was. But this, the Catholic community knew it immediately, because how many Villa girls have a sister at Indiana?
Precisely.
Who was in Italy. I mean, so people knew it, and usually these communities can circle the wagons and keep information out. But on this one, people were angry, so this information, this family's name was known widely very shortly. So people know, but I wouldn't, if I were an editor, I'd say, I don't want to put their names out here, because you never know what somebody's going to do.
You're absolutely right. And because of social media, because you do have those outliers today who feel completely entitled to take matters into their own hands, that's why the police...
go at the house and yell at them.
The police have had regular patrols.
Let me ask you this. If the family was from Afton, would they be identified?
Yes.
I
Yes.
don't.
No. I would hope. Now let's put
Not by anybody. Not by anybody around this table. They would.
Not here. But yes, that would have happened. And not to circle back to the other point, but I think this whole thing about the attorney and the phone records at 8 minutes about that's about saving family name. That's about not being vilified. Nobody has ever said anything about anybody broke the law, but basically this is saving face.
Was that a pun intended, vilified?
Vilified. I thought the same thing.
Charlie,
It really wasn't. It really wasn't.
First of all, I think the larger point is we got to start. This thing is 10 years ago in coronavirus time. I mean, this is the fastest moving story we've ever had, and we're talking about today what happened a week ago. And
but we come out on Thursday, Ray. I mean,
honestly,
if we came out on Sunday, it'd be different.
What I'm trying to say is we know a lot more. I think one of the things this community has to do is come together, first of all. And I also think we have to realize that whatever happens going forward, this is what happened with this family. Is there's going to be a lot more of this, and it isn't going to be because of this family.
Can you give that to me in writing? Hey, let's move on. Okay, how do we think our leaders have done, Alvin Reed? Now, let's talk about Senator Blunt, Congressman Clay, Senator Hawley, Mayor Cruz, and we've talked about County Executive Sam Page. Any others that you want to mention?
Well, you know, the county got drawn into it because of the situation that we have talked about. At best, I give us a C-, not even average.
Really?
Because I think that the nation... For one part, all right, I think one part of the nation just wanted to be like, I don't think it's that bad, you know, maybe it's not that bad. And then another part of the nation was listening to what Bill was mentioning before, like, oh, it's the media, it's nothing, it's blah, it's blah. I think we needed our leadership to come together and say, like, okay, this is where we're at. This is what I'm being told. See, that wouldn't frighten us. The truth doesn't frighten people. And it's like, look, we have people from the CDC saying that there's a great possibility that this will get worse before it gets better. I don't know that we end up canceling all kinds of sporting events and doing this and can't come together in large groups. I don't know what's going to happen, but we're really working on it. And no one had anything to say forget the last 72 hours. No one has really had anything to say pertinent about this going back to February.
Well, I would disagree, because I think the governor had a press conference along with Sam Page on Saturday night. I think they were really clear about the dangers of coronavirus. And in Missouri right now, we do have 2 cases as of tonight. And no deaths, thank goodness, knock on wood. Even, you know, this family's been out and about, and we've already had the 5-day incubation period, and there's no other cases
thinking, like I say, we're on, not like, you know, galaxy time, we're on Thursday time. We came on today. So I'm basically saying, let's go back to people have been talking about this since January, right? And here we are, it's March. So come on, tell us something, okay? Now, and I don't think the Democrats are following the lead of the administration when they didn't have anything to say. But why didn't have anything? Why can't you just talk to us?
And nobody respects you more. Nobody respects you more than I do. But I think to make it a red-blue issue and to say that, you know, that anybody right of center is downplaying this, I think that's grossly unfair.
No, what I was saying, Wendy, is I think that Rush Limbaugh, who said that the Democrats, are weaponizing the common cold,
Right.
and some of the Fox people who said, you know, and the president himself said it was a hoax, walked that back and said the virus isn't a hoax, but the way the Democrats
Right.
and
And
the
I
media,
don't,
you know,
I
so
don't,
if that's all you watched,
Right.
you would think that this isn't so serious.
and that's not where I get my information, but whether or not that is where somebody gets their information, you would believe, as I do, that they would have the presence of mind to see the medical personnel in the protective gear and act accordingly. I would like to say and applaud Mayor Lyda Crewson, who today I think has just absolutely been stellar in terms of putting the public's mind at ease, explaining what the city is doing, you know, working in concert with other local, state, and federal officials. You know, we want to make sure that you have your water on so that you can practice good hygiene. I just think that she has absolutely had a gold star day. Lewis Reed, all of the members of the city administration. Go ahead. Sorry, Charlie.
No, I have no criticism of any Missouri Republicans, including Josh Hawley, Senator Blunt, any of them, or the governor. I think he's done fine. To me, this isn't a partisan issue.
No, it's not.
I think it
Well, I didn't
becomes.
say there's two Democrats and two Republicans. Who said that this was a partisan issue?
I'm not, Alan, I'm saying I don't have any criticism of Lacey Clay. I don't have any criticism of any of the players because it's so fastly unwinding. I think to the extent there are political elements to the story, which there are, they're at the national level, and I think that there's really, it's not productive to battle it along those grounds. I think it's a problem when you put a political figure such as Mike Pence in charge. It should be just, to me, the CDC and the health and the doctors. I think should be the only people talking. I do think the one key part of this that is really hurting our country is we are so far behind in the testing kits and the supplies. We are, I saw a number, we have some number like 6,000 per million, and Britain has like 100,000, and South Korea has like 400,000. I mean, we are so far behind in testing. One point I want to make to Wendy about testing is when you say the suits, which you're right, Mercy, bless their hearts.
Let's not go back to that.
No, wait, I want to say something, and that is you get that same test whether it comes back positive or negative, and not all of them come back positive. So you've got to understand that.
Hey, I would say to Bill's point, and that I think it's a fair debate to take a look at the public reaction to this virus versus other hazards that you have in life. Why do we incorporate, for example, deaths on the highways into our just rational thinking about how many we'll accept? Or influenza. I do believe that influenza, it's just pure data, takes many more lives than this coronavirus.
But influenza has been around since
60 to 80,000 people died in the winter of 2017, 2018,
Right.
and none of us even blinked an eye, really. I don't think we even discussed it on this program. And I think that you could ask questions, you know, how serious is this? I'll take a look, take a look at Missouri, for example, or the nation. The last 2 days, actually, the number of reported cases has gone down each successive day, according to the New York Times. And that's important information. Bayer is reopening. We have 0 deaths in California, 0 deaths in Massachusetts. I'm not saying, we can all rest easy. I'm just saying let's share all the information when we discuss this issue.
We have Tamiflu, Charlie. We have Tamiflu today. Influenza, we have all, and our grandparents and great-grandparents before us grew up with various strains of influenza. This is completely different. This started far, far away in China. It's made its way across the continent. Italy is completely closed. Now it has washed ashore. So I think to err on, and I commend everybody. I think people are, I think that people have really behaved most brilliantly about this in terms of exercising caution, erring on the side of caution. So, I mean, obviously some people are going to fall through the cracks, but I think
agree
by
with
and
Wendy.
large...
Excuse me. I agree with Wendy, and let's get something straight here. First of all, the big difference between the flu and the coronavirus
there's a cure.
Is there's a cure, and there's a vaccine and a cure for one, and the lethality of it at a minimum. The most conservative estimates is the flu is 10 times more, the coronavirus is 10 times, COVID-19 is 10 times more likely, and internationally 34 times more.
Well, that's projections,
so,
Ray. Don't forget, we've lost.
No. I don't think
hang on a second. I'm just going to give you a number. 125 kids have died from influenza in this country since October.
Right.
0 from coronavirus, and we've lost at least 20,000 Americans since October to flu. So I'm just saying it's data you have to take a look at, and you must admit that it's a killer that is not getting its due, so to speak.
The health officials, I follow the health
caution
officials.
I think the caution is that in any given year, and there might be some strain of flu that could just be even something we've never ever met, and drop the strain, whatever. But for now, flu kills whatever number of people it does during the course of a year. We have no idea what the coronavirus could do, and I think if you're looking at it that maybe, it could like half wipe us out, then you have to take greater caution.
I don't think so, though. No one's saying that.
I didn't say that,
let me remind everybody.
I'm saying, like, there's no vaccine, and they don't know.
Okay, let me just say what 2 infectious disease researchers in St. Louis have told me this week, that we are all at low risk of coronavirus. In this country, low risk.
Yeah.
So that's good to know.
I had one on last night too, and they all say this. They all say, first of all, we should be listening. We ought to be very thankful that we have such great medical facilities in this town.
Yes,
and that's an important point. And I mean it. I mean, we really have some of the best medical
We've
facilities.
known that.
Well, I think it's worth pointing out and being thankful for. And they all pretty much say the same things, that the things we are being told about washing our hands, about social
don't touch your face,
distancing, those aren't to be. None of them are saying, well, they're all saying take those very seriously. Everybody talks, all the experts talking very measured terms that we don't know, but they are not minimizing this, and they are saying people need to take this seriously.
I totally agree.
Well,
they also say get a flu shot and like half of us ago.
This one, they
do every fall. They do say that.
The people, in my estimation, the people behind the NBA, Major League Baseball, the National Hockey League, Major League Soccer, the NCAA, these are people who take money very, very seriously. And for them to be talked into taking these measures, I think speaks very loudly to the rest of us.
I agree.
We have to go to extremes to self-protect and therefore protect the people.
Well, that was our next topic, so I was going to direct that to you. Are we doing the right thing?
I'll kick it back to Wendy. I mean, seriously, as a fan,
do you think
and somebody who's thinking that, well, I'll probably be spending a lot of time at home these days. It would have been nice to have the NCAA tournament to watch, and then the Cubs season starts. But I'll kick it back to Wendy. I think you're right, Wendy. They're probably doing the right thing.
Well, somebody called it March sadness now. I mean, that is kind of sad. But for them to take these steps should tell the rest of us something.
Okay. 1:30 this afternoon, I plan to be watching KU play in the Big 12 tournament in Kansas City. Okay? Not happening. All right. But here's the reminder, and this is a very important thing. I've got a freshman at Missouri. They canceled class, half of Wednesday, today and tomorrow, Thursday and Friday. They're going, right now the plan is to take online classes next week, and then their spring break begins. My daughter, Bryson, was home for spring break. Right as I'm walking out the door to come to do the show tonight, she says, Dad, I'm not going back. They've canceled classes for the week, okay? And just told we're on like indefinite spring break. College students, okay? These guys out here that were going to play in the NCAA basketball tournament, college students. This is a reminder that you go to college and you play basketball and you play football and you play field hockey. And this whole thing where like our lives and their lives and everybody's lives revolves around you playing in a basketball tournament in March, that's false. You're a college student and you're going to behave and act like every other college student at this campus.
I think that's well said.
I just do not.
I agree.
I don't feel sorry for any coach, any player, anybody. Well, they're seniors and they worked hard. Hey, facts, detail.
I agree with that. Alvin, doesn't your heart break at all for like these kids who just qualified for the NCAA tournament
Big
on like
dreams.
East Tennessee State, and they were cutting down the nets and going to go to the big dance.
Sure.
I mean, you do feel bad.
Hey,
for
you
those
heard-
guys.
you know,
I
agree.
would tell every one of them, if this is the worst thing that ever happens to you in your life, you're going to leave a pretty charmed life.
Yeah,
I'm
Alvin, that's
sorry.
well said by Alvin, and I will say this. If you want to have some hearts breaking, it's like what Mark Cuban was saying instinctively when he found out is, what about all the ushers? What about all the vendors?
That's
and
right,
kids?
that's
This and that?
right, that's
There's
right.
a lot of people horribly affected by this.
And
I just keep coming back. And in the case of Missouri, we were almost certain to have a 4-game winning streak, shock the world. And
Good for you.
No, but we Alvin's so right. And you really can't in this environment, because this is nothing like the flu. You cannot question people for being overly cautious.
And we also,
I just don't think you can.
I don't think anyone is.
We also have
We're talking about whether they should be canceling basketball games, and I think that they. I think that.
Well, I don't think we debated that.
Well,
We also have to remember they're hitting the pause button. With the NCAA, obviously that's different because that's March Madness, and that
they
obviously
theoretically
comes
could
once a
extend
year.
It could be May,
but they're
man.
They
hitting.
could extend it.
They're just hitting a pause.
Yeah, and that should be
But
played. Like the Blues aren't.
Okay.
canceling
The sports,
Delay.
you know, is one thing, and no one's going to cry a river for the professional athletes who are losing their money for a short period, even if they are. I don't know, maybe they get
The
paid.
players aren't,
But
right.
it's the waiters and the waitresses that I'm concerned about.
Look,
or how
That's
about
what you just said.
the usher?
Right.
And what should be done?
Well,
I mean,
I just
should
said
we
that.
lower? Excuse me. Should we lower the payroll tax? Should we make sure that they get 12 weeks of unpaid leave? And if so, who pays for that?
Well, that's
Is
good.
it the
That debate's
states?
happening
Some
right
of them
now.
are
That is
actually
happening right now in this program. What should we do?
Well, I would say this, that it took me, I was late today to the show because I had to cancel a hotel room for my wife because she was taking Bryson back tomorrow, and I was on the phone 20 minutes, okay? Guess what? You know where else that's happening? St. Louis, Missouri, from people from look like Louisville's coming here and all that.
Yes.
So look, I get it, okay? But what can you do? I mean, it's one of those things where, like, hey, after, you know, our little, you know, satay in Ferguson, you know, and things plummeted and whatnot, I mean, there is no fail-safe for the restaurant and the hotel and industries like that. I think if you wanted to say, like, well, yeah, you get paid vacation and you get this and you get that, that doesn't offset when something like this happens. So I don't think that of everything going on in the country right now, you know, everybody's part of
Charlie,
it.
I have an answer for your question.
It is
which
a great unifier,
Which
isn't
is
it?
Yes,
that the
yes,
answer.
it is.
You have a good question. I think the answer is a national answer at Congress, and I think this is one of the times that shows the value of having a different party control each house, because they will be forced to act quickly despite all their partisan bickering on both sides. They are going to have to act quickly, and they are going to have to come together on a plan on this. And
Yeah, but what should the plan be?
I think
Well,
we'll leave it at
Charlie.
that.
I'll tell you what it shouldn't be, Charlie. I don't think that we should be cutting the payroll tax, which is Social Security and Medicare. You know, the young people today already are concerned that Social Security won't be there for them, and I think that's a very valid concern. And when all of a sudden we have a crisis, so we're going to cut the payroll tax, take it out of Social Security for the future, I think that's wrong.
They're doing anything they can to bolster the markets, and that didn't work. So you're not alone.
Charlie, I just think we got to let it unfold in Washington. I mean, I don't have
Well,
a
you got to
policy
be. Now,
plan.
hang on a second. Let it unfold. We criticize our leaders for not acting in January, but we have to come up with something now, because as bad as this virus might be at some point in terms of death toll, right now we've lost 38 Americans. We don't want that to get higher, but a rotten economy means that people aren't going to have jobs and won't be able to pay the mortgage, and that's real harm, and that's also real pain as well. So we got to come up with something like a plan to help the waiters and the waitresses, or the tour guides, or the cruise lines,
I hear
or
you,
the
but Charlie,
airline industry.
Charlie,
That's a lot of money out of Americans' pocketbooks.
I agree that. But Charlie, when it came down to push and shove, okay, you know, people are going to say, like, it's that, you know, red side that's a problem. Nope. It's both sides, because if it came down to it, and we can have these discussions, and bills could get thrown out there and all that, but if you're an usher, or you're a waiter, or a waitress, or servers, as they like to be called, or you have a job like that, basically, our Congress, senators, and House of Representatives are going to say you're on your own. Because that's the reality.
Well, let's not hope.
I know, but you're saying we should do something. Hey, I'm not, like I say, this is both sides that they are going to say, like, well, you know what you should do? You shouldn't be a server or you shouldn't be a usher.
Charlie, by the time this episode re-airs, whenever they re-air, we'll probably have a bill. And the way this ought to be done is not resolved by pundits or people sitting around.
Oh, come on. We're Americans with opinions.
Excuse me.
We have a role here, Ray. Why are you kicking the can down the road?
What I'm suggesting is, perhaps, maybe this is a very outdated idea, the elected representatives acting on the advice of people with expertise, need to figure out a solution to a very humongous, giant problem.
Okay.
I don't think that's
you're
kicking
punting on that issue.
No, I'm not punting. I'm just saying we have a process. Thank goodness it's different parties, and they need to come together based on expert advice to figure out what to do. Not us sitting there going, "Oh, payroll tax, yes, this, no." Let them figure it out.
That's the first time in 32 years you haven't had an opinion on public policy.
That's not true.
Oh, let's let our elected leaders decide.
I think
they know more than you do.
Excuse me. I think this is a different time. This is a serious pandemic crisis, and we need to be grown-ups about this. And the process has to work on this. It's not about
Ray, we do have to be grown-ups on it, but if we can't sit around and say, no, we shouldn't have a payroll, we should have Social Security.
That's fine.
That's not being irresponsible.
I didn't say it was being irresponsible. I just said what I think has to happen. I'm sorry.
We will be doing Donnie Bash on October 1st, and them, the servers and the ushers will still be waiting for Congress to do something to help.
Well, let's hope not. Let's hope not. Let's hope not. Hey, Ray, I want to ask you about Bernie Sanders. He did not do well in Missouri this time around. He was beaten by almost 30 points by Joe Biden in the Missouri Democratic primary. But that's what you wrote in your column. You were saying, hey, you're a Bernie supporter, going to vote for Biden. I guess Missouri followed your lead in this case.
I was a Bernie supporter in 2016. I think the circumstances changed since 2020. I have great respect for him, and I think he will be remembered well as somebody who, whatever you think about his politics, has really moved the dial.
I agree.
He will be remembered as a statesman who got us really talking about why we should have health care for all. I had nothing bad to say about Bernie Sanders. I do think right now that removing Donald Trump, who I think wants to be, as I said in my column, America's Vladimir Putin, is a very big deal. And I think Joe Biden is the perfect candidate for this, for all his flaws, because he can calm the country down. And we're particularly seeing with the coronavirus this. And so that's why I'm for him, and that's why
What happened to the young voter?
Well, okay, I have a young voter in my house who voted for Bernie last time, who voted for Biden this time. They're not counting her, obviously, because they're saying, like, well, what happened to the young people? Why didn't they show up? I said, like, well, maybe they showed up and they voted for somebody different this time. And I know that was true in my household. So how many other thousands of Missourians did the same thing?
So how do you lose them?
Well, I think because, as the Post-Dispatch editorial pointed out, they have become more pragmatic. They understand now that apathy, you know, that apathy has consequences if you're talking about presidential elections, and they don't want that to happen again.
But you know, the numbers were down for young voters in this nation. They are seemingly more apathetic.
But they were up for Democratic voters, and I'm not saying that all young people are Democrats.
But it's the baby boomers who are voting for Biden.
The older Democrats.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that wherever younger people were, okay, maybe they decided, well, if Bernie's not going to be the president, then I'm going to vote. That's fine. Okay, that's a mistake. And I think that will change in a week.
And not this baby boomer as far as voting for Biden. You know, I like Joe Biden, and I hope he does well, but I voted for Bernie. And, I mean, my wild, outrageous hopes was that it would be a contested convention, and some character that I like more than Biden or Bernie will come from nowhere and will nominate Wesley Clark again.
We may have been one Jim Clyburn away from that happening.
Yes.
His amazing endorsement, which will be remembered in history. I mean, whatever you think of, you know, was an amazing moment. And what happened after that, which was very spontaneous, I mean, you talk about a movement. I mean, Joe Biden ran and continues to run the table with no ground game, previously no money at all, and not many appearances. And the African-American electorate spoke, I think, with great common sense on this. just basically feels that getting rid of Donald Trump is job one.
It was
and
amazing.
this was the guy to do it. And
And
we've
it
never seen anything like it in our
started
history.
in South Carolina.
We've never seen
When
anything
you
like
look
it
at
in our history.
Biden in Missouri, he was outspent by Michael Bloomberg. Biden spent $273,000 as of 1 week ago. Bloomberg had spent $9.8 million. And then behind Bloomberg, it was Sanders and Warren. They all outspent Joe Biden. Biden didn't even have a St. Louis office. He shared some space with the IBEW in South St. Louis. Bloomberg had 3 offices. It just shows you that maybe the old days of organization are not as important as they used to be, because that's what Trump, but Trump didn't have it either.
This is a little bit of a phenomenon, though, because Joe Biden has the name and the kind of general trust, and Bernie lost this state by, was it 1 or a tenth or 2/10 of a point
And they
last
split
time.
the delegates.
And it was 25 points this year. And I mean,
Sure.
Joe Biden, who doesn't, you know, I think the country so much yearns, despite what we hear at our show, to be coming together and to calm down, start listening to each other. I really think that's his heart.
Real quick, Charlie. I think also those of us that maybe not inclined, because I think I was leaning toward Biden, but Bloomberg was in there, and Bloomberg on Super Tuesday got knocked out.
Oh, man.
So the boxer you like is laying on the canvas.
He was laying on the canvas at the
It's like
debate.
all of a sudden you think like, I'll vote for somebody else.
Elizabeth Warren gave him the 8 count. At
Well,
the
you know,
debate.
I kind of felt at the voting booth Tuesday like a kid who went in there and there's 22 kinds of ice cream, but I'm down to 2. You know, I mean, everybody else has already selected the ones that I wanted, and so there I am, and I'm down to it's Bernie or Joe or throw my vote away.
Well, I
It
was
a walk
going
down
up
memory lane because you had Marianne Williamson.
Yeah, exactly.
Am I the only one that was going up and down? I was looking for Joe, and I didn't see. I went up and down, and oh, Joseph. You know, I mean, I didn't know it was
Well,
Joseph.
how about voting for the Kansas City mayor, Wendy? Because he went into the voting booth in the church where he had been voting for 10 years. And apparently he wasn't recognized because they said your name is not on the list. He did bring a utility bill to vote, which I thought was a little bit curious for the mayor of the second largest city, maybe the largest city. Is Kansas City larger than the city of St. Louis now? I'm not sure.
Yes, as a city.
As a city. Okay.
They love to brag about that.
So he goes in there, they turn him away. Apparently he rejected a provisional ballot. And I'm thinking he was on NPR's All Things Considered by 3 o'clock our time. I'm wondering, do you suspect at all that this was a setup?
Not at all. Not at all. I am proud of myself for that, because usually I am cynical with a capital C. But in this particular case, no. I think Quentin Lucas, isn't that his name? He went in where he's been voting for 11 years. I mean, who knows what types of changes there have been. I sometimes will put a utility bill or, you know, something that I normally wouldn't, just so that I don't have to fool around and, you know, go home after I'm turned away. But it reminded me of the Super Bowl commercial that was so popular when okay is enough. You know, when the mom's on the carnival ride with her son and they've got duct tape, you know. That's kind of, we had problems here in St. Louis with Wi-Fi connections and paper ballots and that kind of thing. Just that, I don't know, standards are somehow, I think, slipping in a lot of different areas, and I think tragically we see it at polling places. Why is that
and
so?
apparently his name was transposed.
Yeah,
So
I mean, it was a
If
basic.
I showed up, I said I'm Alvin Reed. It said like, no, it says here that your name is Reed Alvin. I don't know. I guess technically you have to follow the rules. I'm not excusing, but I'm just like
But why didn't he take a provisional ballot?
No, I don't have an
No,
answer
but wouldn't
to
you
that.
think that somebody who's interested enough in the process to be working at the polls would recognize the mayor?
You would
Yes.
absolutely
I mean, you know,
think that.
like I could see the average citizen, you know, never even heard of the guy, but somebody who's working at the polls, it seems like he or she would recognize.
I
We
think-
don't,
I
but we
think
don't
that's
know all the
50-50.
aldermen. We've proven that
Yeah.
point a time or two on this
Yeah,
particular
but this was
show.
the mayor of the city.
I think that's 50-50.
I
I'm not going. I'm not
I
going
don't
to lie.
think
I think he was on a mission to try and demonstrate that people are
I'm
being
not denying. You know what?
disenfranchised.
I'm not
You know
denying
what?
that. I'm going back to the point where I'm saying, like, no, I think it's 50-50 that a poll worker would know what the mayor looked like.
I don't think that. I think a lot of times, believe it or not, even the facial characteristics of the mayor, his identity, being able to recognize him, people just aren't there today.
Well, first of all,
they really aren't.
I got recognized at a little polling place for Donnybrook. I would think he got recognized, but on the other hand, and they were very nice, by the way. But I think the bigger
they let you vote anyway.
Even if you're conspiracy theory, even if he was doing it to draw attention to the issues of voter suppression, good for him, because it's a big problem in this country.
But in the state of Missouri? Right?
Yes. Are you kidding? The Republicans are trying to get all this voter ID done to disenfranchise all those
people.
people.
in the world to vote in Missouri.
I get
you
it,
can bring a utility bill.
My point is, I'm with Wendy. I'm not cynical about this, but even if he was doing it, I'd be fine with it. I think what we really got to be worried about.
You'd be fine if he was staging this?
And he did have a utility bill, Charlie,
he
right?
Did. They transposed his name. It was
we
either
can't.
Lucas or Lucas Putin.
Charlie, my late grandmother has been late now for about 30 years. And I can't get her off the St. Louis County voting roll.
Seriously?
Yeah.
That's a story.
Well, because basically they said
what'd she vote for?
Well, you have to basically prove that she has died, and I really don't want to go to Clayton and get a death certificate to take. Look, it's just you want to look and say Irene Reed hasn't voted since.
Is she still getting literature?
Actually, she does, and then it's so crazy. I get Bloomberg on the same day I get Trump, and then
I think Bloomberg still
the election officials said that the worker, the poll worker, actually just dropped the ball, and
I believe it. Right. And going back a number of years, Irene Reed somehow or the other was Mitt Romney's favorite woman in the world. I mean, Irene Reed got everything from Mitt Romney. Thank you for your loyal support. And I'm thinking, my grandmother is looking down from heaven saying, who is Mitt Romney? Right.
We need all the votes we can get. But I was, no disrespect. But no, I'm just saying that I think election security is a big issue. And I know about the Mueller report very clearly drew out that we better be worried about that.
Okay. Hey, Wendy, what do you think about the Loop Trolley? Joe Edwards, who is one of the members of the Loop Trolley Commission, has sent a letter indicating that he thinks there's enough money from the special taxing district that's along DeBolivar and Delmar so that they will have the money to bring in a third trolley and start running it 4 days a week, commencing next month.
I don't know if I'm the only one that reacted this way, but there's a great old axiom that timing is everything, and I had to laugh out loud when you think of the timing in this particular instance. That we are dealing with coronavirus. That coronavirus is all anybody can think of. And then it's almost like the Loop Trolley zombie apocalypse. it was worth. I mean, we're all looking the same direction. Everybody's in the same canoe. We're all having this this shared experience. And Joe Edwards, hey, don't forget about my trolley now. I know that you're worried about a life-altering virus, but don't forget about the trolley. It was worth $54 million in comic relief to me at that moment. But that said, I think that his argument that when it comes to federal transportation dollars and the future of those dollars is enough of a reason for us all to support whatever view he has for the future of the Loop Trolley. I think he's going to fall short. People have completely lost patience.
I respectfully disagree with you, Ms. Wendy.
That's okay.
I mean, here we are. 5 minutes ago, we were talking about how are we going to possibly raise money to help all these people and industries hurt, and well, maybe we could take it out of Social Security, and all of a sudden we're talking about, well, we got a little more for the Loop Trolley. I mean, these are the sorts of projects that we ought to say, right now we're like a family that's, the breadwinner, one of the breadwinners has lost his job. We got to figure out what to do, and the Loop Trolley money ought to be going into some kind of fund for the...
It cannot.
I hate to break it to you.
Ray, you were talking before about our elected leaders got to get together and be imaginative, and so this is something they can be imaginative about.
But that's actually what I was saying. So as much as I don't want to break your heart, we're in agreement on this.
Oh, we are?
Yeah.
Legally,
good.
we still do have...
Doesn't break my heart at all.
The TDD exists. It's a legal entity, and it does collect 1% from sales in the Loop District, okay? That's just a fact, and it's a fact that there are two, it's a binary choice. It's the same thing we talked about before. There's a binary choice. Either we can collect it and send it back to Washington to repay the Transportation Department, which is not going to go anything but transportation, or we can attempt to make the Loop Trolley work. And I think that it's, personally, I think, and obviously you're right, the timing's bad, but I mean, just because the timing's bad, we still talk about other things. And I mean, it's not like
It was just
and
humorous.
I think, well, I think that if Bi-State, I personally think that Bi-State, with a commitment to put no dollars in other than the $1.9 million the federal government of transportation money that they've offered us, other than that, the third card is here, by the way, but that I think it is. Now, do I think it's going to be successful?
Do you think there's any demand for this trolley by the public?
I don't know if there's demand, but I don't know that. And of course, one of the ironic things is everybody's looking for things that don't have any people on it. This is.
I'll take that as a no.
No,
I'll take that as a no.
But I think that seriously, I think they ought to give it a chance. That's what.
But I don't think you can be dogmatic about, well, this is binary. When 5 minutes ago, Ray, you were talking about how we got to have both Congress together and they got to come up with something. And this is the sort of thing
this pot of money is earmarked. It's done.
They should say this bottom line is gone. Right now we're in a crisis, and we need every penny we can get. Right. And that means that the Loop Trolley is no longer binary.
And I agree with Ray, okay, in that, all right, maybe this is one last shot at, I don't think it's going to work. Why would adding a third car create it? But here's the kind of the caveat to that. And one is, you know, when this deal, wherever Joe or whoever the taxing commission was coming up with, when they were talking about that was before the last week and the whole coronavirus thing.
True.
But I think that I agree with you, Ray, but I also agree with Bill in that, boy, in the great movie Kelly's Heroes, when the tank is outside the bank and Don Rickles says, make a deal. You know, I'm saying, like, it's time to say, like, hey, how about we just send you the $900,000 for 3 years and you leave us alone? And you cities got its money to tear up.
All right, okay, let's move on. Move on, gentlemen.
The FDA is not making deals with us.
Bill, I want to ask you about I think the Board of Aldermen is going to look at this tomorrow, maybe for final passage, and that would say that if you're a domestic abuser, domestic violence, you can't conceal carry in the city of St. Louis. All fine and good, making that an ordinance violation, but detractors say, hey, that's already a felony that's punishable at the federal level. Is this just a publicity stunt by local aldermen?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you have women saying that, yes, it's a felony that the feds can go after, but the feds aren't always going after it. So anything you can do to prevent a domestic abuser from carrying a concealed weapon sounds like a good thing to me.
And yet, you think then the police are going to be enforcing this, and then it'll be prosecuted by the circuit attorney?
I hope so. I mean, the first thing you have to look at, Charlie, is should a domestic abuser be allowed to carry a concealed weapon? And I think 98% of us would say, no, he shouldn't, or she shouldn't. Yeah. And so, you know, it's up to the police to
agree.
Handle
Charlie, that's why it's already a federal law.
But Charlie, but if the feds aren't always doing it, you might as well say, okay, now let's let the
law enforcement say they've got the numbers that actually Jeff Jensen is enforcing it.
Charlie, I agree. I think for the first time tonight with my fellow founder, we finally got. No, first of all, that's their argument. Is Jeff Jensen, when he gets done, you know, trying to figure out whether General Flynn was somehow talked himself into lying.
Come on, Ray, get to the point.
No. Well, he's got that little political error and he's been sent on. But Jeff Jensen, if he's willing to prosecute these cases, nothing about either the ordinance in the city or the one in the county that just passed is going to keep him from doing so. So women overwhelmingly say that these are under prosecuted, to Bill's point. And if they're wrong, then this isn't double jeopardy. Jeff Jensen can take these cases.
Jeff Jensen
can take them.
has prosecuted more gun violations than his predecessors and the locals in recent years.
Okay, but Charlie.
But what's the harm?
What's the
in
harm?
the city
No,
saying
that's what I was going to say.
Well, it may not be harmful, but I think it's a publicity
Charlie,
stunt. Or it runs that risk. If you already have a law and you pass another law that duplicates
it's illegal to sell heroin in Kirkwood, St. Louis County, state of Missouri, United States of America.
People still sell heroin.
People still sell heroin, and all four have a law that says you can't do it. What's wrong with a municipality saying we are going to enforce it?
And the county.
Christine Ingracia's bill, right? She said we want them to have all the tools in their toolbox.
Absolutely.
Let
And
them
the
have
county did
another
the same
tool
thing.
in their
The
toolbox.
county did the same thing, and
Yep.
the critics there also were
They had the
critical
same
there.
arguments, and I've been on Tim Finch's side on just about everything.
All right, well, now the Board of Aldermen can pass a law, outlawing homicide. Okay, let's get to the
They haven't done
letters.
that yet?
Exactly.
I'm going to watch my step on the way home.
Spending on marijuana makes a big difference to the state of Illinois because they have additional taxes of 10, 20, and 35% of marijuana products. That from Kevin J. Cobalt of Baldwin, Missouri. 17 months is too short a sentence for Mr. Rallo or anyone else convicted of stealing from public trust. Hopefully, the sentence includes long daily exercise sessions making pea gravel out of large boulders. That from Nick Hall. Ken and Sandy Buren, please look at the pictures on the wall of your set. Half of them are crooked and they distract us from your conversation. You can write us, care of Donnybrook, 3655 Olive Street, 63108. We also love your emails as well as your tweets, and you can listen to us on your favorite podcast source. That would be Apple, Spotify, Google Play, and TuneIn. And again, everybody, thank you so much for inviting us into your living rooms on this edition, for this edition of Donnybrook. Thanks so much. Take care. We'll see you next week.
Donnybrook is made possible by the members of the 9 Network.